Language that economists use is not always understood by ordinary people. When you look into figures, like a lot of abuse is made over the marginal tax rate, for instance, instead of what the effective tax rate actually is, which is, the difference between what the sticker price is and what people will actually pay after the accountants actually get through, with all the deductions that people are able to make on their taxes. And so what you really should be paying attention to is the effective tax rate. And I bring this up in part because the language that politicians use often lends itself to, a lot of abuse by people who will be like, "Well, they're just trying to, use an excuse for the fact that inflation is it still remains." And it got me thinking about all of this, which is just that, when you listen to people on media and the media talk about, what's happening in the world, they will say that inflation is still here because of supply chain difficulties, but this language obscures what's really going on in the world, and it's lent itself to people that would be like, "Oh, they're just being greedy and trying to, make excuses for what they're trying to for keeping prices high and price gouging," and it's like people I mean, I can't deny that there may be some people that are engaging in that kind of behavior, but, the majority of us are not like that, and the truth of the matter is that what they mean by supply chain difficulties is that China has enacted a zero COVID policy, so, effectively, when in essence, when China picks up on a case of COVID in a factory, it will completely shut the factory down, as a result of it, and will not, their economy has been going through this stop, go, 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 way of doing things, and it's become what the supply chain really wants is predictability, and unfortunately, the Chinese market has become chaotic in the wake of the COVID-19 fiasco and the outbreak. And let me remind you that many of us thought that this virus would be over by now and that it would not last as long as it has. But we have not been able to organize a response where everybody gets vaccinated and does their due diligence as far as preventing this virus from spreading further than it really needs to, and that's been my argument all along, which is just, I've been reluctant to endorse the concept of body autonomy, despite the fact that I'm completely on board with allowing a woman to abort a pregnancy that she doesn't want. If it's unwanted, then what the hell is the point of forcing her to basically carry it out? And besides which, it's none of my business anyways. I don't have a womb personally. I'm not going to be the one that has to carry it inside me for 9 months. I mean, I agree with them about all that, but when it comes to this issue of body autonomy, I mean, it would be one thing if viruses worked in the kind of way where, like, the only person that got infected was you, but unfortunately, one thing that, these microbial life forms like to do is to replicate and spread themselves all over the place, and so they will jump from one body to another, and so by not getting vaccinated, you're basically volunteering to be to take the risk of becoming a carrier of the virus, and when you become a carrier, everybody that comes into contact with you is likely to get infected by you, and that's really ultimately your karma because of the fact that you refuse to do the things that our society has endorsed as the most and science has figured out are the best ways to actually fight this virus, which is to get your fucking shots. And by the way, I am going in for my shot soon, you know, for COVID-19. But yeah, you guys, I have one pending, a meeting for the mutated strains pending for this particular virus, but it irritates me because I thought I would do my bit to kind of spread awareness about what's going on as far as inflation is concerned in the terms that you guys would understand, into language that the layman could understand, which is just China has enacted a zero COVID policy where it shuts its factories down every time it picks up on somebody with this. China is right now indisputably the world's factory. Some hay could be made over the fact that a lot of the manufacturing is starting to transition towards Vietnam. Now, I don't know if Vietnam can actually replace China. It would probably take more than one country to actually displace it entirely. And yes, it's true. Vietnam has become another, outpost, but we have a secondary factory and then we have a primary factory for the world. And the primary factory remains to be China. And China has been enacting these COVID shutdown policies. And when people talk about supply chain troubles, that's what they're referring to. It's just one very simple term that enables them to talk about a lot of things, and it was in a very short with fewer words, basically. And that's what economists and financial people and people on the news and all over the place are talking about when they talk about supply chain disruptions and trouble with the supply chain. They're talking about the supply shock that results as a result of China shutting itself down in order to control the virus, okay? So if you're looking at the headlines, some hay could be made over the fact too that it was greedy to rely on China to the extent that we did. That I'm not disputing. What I'm disputing is the world did start using China in order to maximize profits, and so why inflation has lasted longer than everybody predicted. COVID has lasted longer than everybody predicted. We underestimated this virus, and we underestimated what the world would do in response to it. Nobody really predicted China would do this and respond to this virus the way that it has. It's enacted an extremely aggressive, some would say draconian way of dealing with this particular outbreak. And so the world is going from factories open to factories shut the moment that they detect any infections. So I bid you adieu. That's been my attempt to translate this into terms that the masses can understand.